Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 5? Yes, it is. Episode 5 of Beyond the Court. I'm Khalilitang, aka GT. I'm here with my homie Sukumani, as always. What's going on, Sukumani?
What up, G? How you doing, man?
I'm Easy Dog. And then today we have a special guest, a guy who's known for his words, whether it's on the advertising field or in the music field. He's one of the dopest homies you'll ever meet. He's a dope wordsmith, dope copywriter, dope musician. Actually, I'm saying too much good things about Laz.
And a dope CD, man. Give the man a flowers.
Give it up for the Lazarus, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Hey, what's the house music equivalent of a do? We just sitting on our head.
I think it's like a summer day. I don't know. We don't have that. Yeah, that's it.
What's going on? How you been, boy?
Good.
Yeah.
There was, before, we're about to hit this crazy topic. So I was watching the thing we're about to discuss for some time, and someone who came up to me and they were like, "Yeah, I've got the whole season. Do you want it?" I said, "Nope, I'll wait. I'll wait. I don't mind waiting a week to see it again because I don't want it to end that quickly. You know what I'm saying? I always knew it was going to end, but I just wasn't ready,
Yeah.
Niggas trying to spoil it.
Yeah.
I could have watched it, and I was like, "There's no." Like, I was tempted, but I was like, "I want to wait like everyone else, because
there's a magic in that that's gone. There's a magic in anticipating to see the story unfold, the narrative continue. Just that little bit of waiting and that suspense. Like you don't know what you're gonna see. Yeah. Instead of just scheming the whole thing and then burping it out.
Yeah, binging's overrated, man.
Yeah, man, too much, bro. Too much. Yeah.
I also love how Laz is like this thing we're about to discuss. It's okay, dog. You can say the last words for it.
Hey, listen, man. You see, now it's a surprise. Look, everyone's like, "Oh, it's the last one." You see, I was setting it up, and then you queued. Ali, you queue.
And also, I think the thing of doing 2 episodes, it was actually quite dope, right? Because normally you always wait for 1 episode, but the 2 episode thing was nice.
2 episode was good. Yeah. And the 2 episode was dope because it did the length well, because they were quite longish. The 50 minutes, 55, they varied. So it gave them the flexibility to be able to do longer or shorter episodes. But still, they were above, some of them were 1 hour, some of them were 50. So that was really satisfying as well, that you were immersed in that thing for that hour. And then you had a little bit more, and then you had to wait. Yeah.
The thing is, it didn't feel like you were watching the documentary series, like the 2 episodes. It didn't feel like you're spending 2 hours of your day.
Exactly. I will naughtily say, I used to mute meetings and watch that shit. I'll be like, and I know that the docky can wait. I know I can pause the docky and see it after the meeting. But in my mind, I'm like, damn, I really like this. I gotta hear what he's saying. And then pause it and then bring the meeting back up again.
I would lie though, I made a rookie mistake the first 2 episodes because I wanted to prolong it. I don't want to watch both episodes on the same day. So I watched the first episode and then I was like, "Oh my God, I can't wait to see the second episode, but I'll wait tomorrow." And then I watched the second episode, but then the spoilers were...
And Twitter destroyed you.
Twitter's been ruthless, man. Yeah.
Twitter doesn't have... Twitter doesn't have I know wool as soon as and for me it's part of the reason why I don't watch a lot of things, because immediately when something becomes too hyped for me, I start to question the hype of that particular thing. So I'd read about The Last Dance before it came out, and then I'd read the comments from the people who'd watched it prior to it, and those comments from those individuals who are actually in the movie or in the docu made me interested to see it. Like when Magic Johnson said that it'll renew, the youth's interest, the people that are post Jordan, you know what I'm saying? After him will regain a love and understand why he was who he was. You know what I'm saying? because the
Yeah.
23-year-olds of today, the 20-year-olds, they buy the culture. But for the shoe to exist, none of us really were like that cognizant in age-wise when he was flourishing. You know what I'm saying? So we might have seen specks of it specifically from a South African perspective, but this documentary just opened that wound up all over again. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Nice.
Jordan feeling.
I mean, yeah, I think, yeah, that's all crazy. And then please explain your comments, Joe, because I saw the one day you tweeted that, why is Jordan crying over a championship or something like that. I was like, hey, Lazarus, I know.
Like I've also like surprisingly, like I've watched it sometimes, very like aware and sometimes very high. So certain things like make me gag. Like sometimes he seemed a bit childish to me sometimes. Like I was like, this nigga love winning that much? You know what I'm saying? Like he was just so obsessed with it, So when they asked, dude, and then when they asked like when they asked how when they showed like what he was, the trash talking and the fact that he pushed other players quite a bit, and they asked players about them, and then they relayed some of the information to him, and then he went and then he teared up about it. He's like, this is how I play. If you don't play like that, then don't play. I was like, Jordan, you cried over that. Like that's how much it meant to him on that like level. And in order to you have to be drawn into something so deeply like that. I laughed at it, but I understood it. I was like, this is how much that shit means to that nigga. Like he believes it full on. Like if you don't want to win, don't play. That is don't be in this team. We're about winning, and if you're not going to do that, don't come. And that's such an amazing like thing to have. It was funny to me, but I understood it. I was like, that's how far he will go.
Yeah, man. So firstly, it's dope to have you on the show. I mean, I think you and I always talk about mostly about Formula One. Funny enough, like
yeah, that's my heart right there. I'm very passionate about that.
Talking about Formula One when there's all these other sports in the world. But I think every now and again we'll talk a little bit about basketball. So that's why I thought it would be cool to have you on the show. To get your
Sweet.
Kind of dig deeper into the crazy mind of yours. We always do like a little cheers to welcome people to the show. So.
You guys have caught me at the end of my stint. Cheers.
Cheers.
Salute.
I'm down to my last bit of Jameson, but anyone knows people who work at Jameson, what's up, Sans?
Plug. The plug. Come through, man.
We'll do a Sunday roast pod.
Yeah, dog. Like that's what's up. Don't be like that. Like this is good for your soul. Come through, Jay.
So, Sugu, like we just spoke a little bit about, series as a whole, actually, not really the last couple of episodes. What were some of your favorite moments from, episode 9 and 10 of the last answer?
9 and 10. Go for it.
Yeah. No, dude. I'm thinking. Yeah. So I'm a loud thinker.
No, I think for me it was more just like it was like bringing the whole story together. Like I think the Steve Kerr story was quite dope. Like hearing about his father. I think that was probably the highlights of those 2 episodes. Like hearing his father's story, I was like, damn, dog, that is deep. And like he was like, that's what you come from. Because I mean, Kerr is that guy who we forget he was coached by Phil Jackson and then he was coached by Popovich. So he comes from like a pretty strong lineage basketball-wise in his playing career. And he's got like 5 rings quietly, like as a player. So I mean, like,
forgot about Pop, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, he actually managed to do the 4-peat and everything. But yeah, it was just interesting to hear from Steve Kerr because I think he's like a guy that gets forgotten. Like, he was the John Paxson of the second round, so I thought Steve Kerr's story was my highlight.
Nice. LazarusMan, what was your favorite parts of the last?
Yeah, I think the Kerr story was definitely my highlights. I even put up a tweet about it, speaking about how like the underlying theme or the sub-theme of The Last Dance is fatherhood and the stories of those gentlemen's parents and their fathers and how they went out like that. But the thing that kept them together was the passion for this one thing, So it also interesting, like, did you and Jordan ever talk about that? These men never touched base on that thing. you know, like they just dealt with it. So that for me was really important. And I think, you know, it's a very interesting juxtaposition of fathers then and fathers now. So that was, and that's been kind of what the Last Dance has also put apparent to me. And, you know, yeah, so that was definitely my favorite as well. I have to concur.
Yeah, I won't lie, James. Like for me, Dennis Rodman. The last two episodes, Dennis Rodman.
Of course, because you're a child. you love that NWO shit, yeah.
Oh, in the middle of the finals. In the middle of the finals. And, and I love how he justifies it by like, yeah, but Phil knows I need my time away. I need to take a break. And then if you need me focus,
yeah.
I was like, hey, Rodman is my MVP. Like, and then I think someone put it very well into a tweet. I think someone said Dennis Rodman had probably the best 2 days of those NBA finals. Like,
and that's how he performed, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but these 2 days were made up of missing practice and going to the WWE to hold a championship bout and tag team with Hulk Hogan, smack Diamond Dallas Page with a chair, go back, play a game, score the winning free throws, and then go home with Common Electra. Like, homie had it good, dog. Homie had it good. So, Dennis Rodman was definitely my MVP in the last few days. So one thing I want to ask you guys, right, is if you look at the last, I think it was in the last episode especially, someone makes a comment. I think in the beginning, funny enough, you hear like how Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen were like giving Jerry Krause like a lot of beef and like were like shouting at him and treating him badly in the beginning. Interesting thing for me was at the end, Scottie Pippen was like, you know what, it's just like everyone else. Jerry Krause was just as important to the team as Mike, as myself, as Dennis Rodman. Who would you guys say was the most important person in putting that team together? Laz, you can go first on this one.
You know, I'm gonna go for this person because I'm gonna go for this person because I can relate to this person because I'm similar to that individual, you know. But I think I see all the individuals, but you know, and it's a controversial one, but I think like Dennis Rodman for me was at the and I'll tell you why I say Dennis Rodman. For Jordan to have the standards that he has in terms of performance and work rate and demand a certain level of expertise, for him to be able to forgive and pass and through past the things that Dennis did and be like, okay, cool, come back and play. That shows you that on a deeper level, Dennis, you know, Michael knew that he needed Dennis and what Dennis could do. And then the whole team still forgave him for that kind of stuff. They fetched him at hotels to come and play, even though he wouldn't have like accepted or tolerated that from any other players, but he did from Dennis, and the whole team was like that in that sense. You know what I'm saying? So I find that he was such an interesting dynamic because he was the ugliest side of the Bulls that, you know, that people didn't, you know, he was that other side. He wasn't in those, you know, he wasn't looking like everyone else, but he did the things that needed to be done for the team so everyone else could shine. He would literally sift through the mud and bring it. And I feel like, and I saw that throughout. And that's why I think now his role seems a little bit crazier than ever and more. But if Michael Jordan can be like, okay, cool, okay, you went wrestling, get on the court, that's fine. The same guy who's going to heckle you for missing a free throw, or when another teammate, for a team member from another team speaks smack about you, you're not going to have it. But he's going to go, yo, it's cool, bro. Come back into the team. I think that shows a level of like respect that man had for that homie, and how as a team together they always welcomed him back because they knew they needed him. Without him, there was some wonkiness, you know what I'm saying? So I feel that from that feeling, you know, it's more of an emotional, I think, choice than it is like a calculated or functional one. But just seeing him as the horse, as the person who somehow is the little boy in the room, they all treated him like this kid who didn't understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was like, they pushed him around. You know what I'm saying? You can see they're like, there's like crazy boy Dennis. You know, let's go get him at the hotel. You know, get him back here, let him go. So yeah.
He also seems like someone who like he just goes whatever he's feeling. Like if he feels like he wants to fly out to Vegas, that's
he's
what
down, bro. And that's what it is, because I think people like him, sportsmen like him, realize that this is not the end. You know, it's happened to a few players that just go, actually, you know, football maybe isn't everything. You know, and I think it's happening to Neymar. You know, I think he likes being there, but it's not his life anymore. He like that Ballon d'Or. It's like that Ballon d'Or is cool, but yo, man, I got Jordan kicks. You know, I'm with models. I fly down for my sister's birthday every year, no matter what year it is. You know, so you know what I'm saying? Dennis is kind of those people that, you know, the sport isn't the end all and be all. It's a vehicle for him to do the things that he wants in life. You know?
Yeah. I think the interesting thing for me about Dennis Rodman was, I think someone mentioned in the episode that everyone knew who Dennis Rodman was and his antics during a time when there was no social media. Dog. Like, you understand how crazy that guy must have been for everyone to know how crazy he was going. No social media, but this guy is trending all the time.
As a kid, Dennis freaked me out. Like, I didn't understand Dennis. When I first saw Dennis on TV, I'm an adult now, but like when he appeared in that movie with Van Damme, I was like, why is he wearing tights? You know, like, why is he like, this is so strange. Why are all those nipple rings on his, you know, it was weird, you know? And I think him and Buster were like in the same weird contemporary shit.
I'm actually going to watch this movie this weekend because you're not the first person to bring it up in the podcast. But yo, dog, I think also like Dennis Rodman, like, I get it that it's your opinion, but to a degree, it also makes sense, right? I mean, if you look at how hard Michael Jordan was on every other player in the team, but Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen always kind of got a pass. Like, I didn't hear Michael Jordan say one bad thing about Dennis Rodman, even when he was disappearing.
Yeah.
You know? Like the fact that Michael Jordan went to a hotel room, I think, Tuku, you mentioned it after the episode.
Yeah.
Went to a hotel room to be like, dog, okay, fine, you've had your fun. Come back.
Come back. And Dennis came back. Dennis never folded. He came back.
Yeah. And then Suku, who was your most important person in the organization?
Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson, no doubt. Because he had to keep the whole thing together, basically. So I think he had to keep this whole circus going. Like, he had to kind of rein everyone in when they needed to kind of get reined in. And I think the fact that, like, he's the reason why it was the last dance, because he was leaving. Like, everyone else could have stayed, but then as soon as they said, now Phil's gone, they're like, okay, cool, then we're all gone. So I think he was like quite a key component for that.
I find it interesting with Phil Jackson, and when they tapped on the relationship and the similarities between Phil Jackson and Dennis Rodman, you know, you begin to see that Phil saw himself, and he was that player for his team at the time. He was their Dennis Rodman, you know, speaking about Dwayne Acid. And then he re-engineered a persona type character back into his team to keep the team balanced in the way. You know what I'm saying? It's weird that those two individuals have shared similarities, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like, the interesting thing about Phil Jackson is, like, he kept his calm. And I mean, I don't think, apart from the part where Scottie Pippen refused to get back into the game, that's the only part I kind of saw, like, you know, Phil Jackson lose his mind. And I think even that nice touch he did at the end, where he got everyone to come back into the stadium or into the training facilities, writes about how they feel about the team and each other. I mean, that's why they call him the Zen Master, right? Because it was all about that calmness and, you know, keeping it together. My answer is going to be it's going to be an unpopular opinion, because we obviously know that, you know, Michael Jordan is the greatest. Everyone who was involved in that winning team wasn't there apart from the owner, Jerry Reisendorf, and Jerry Krause. So, I mean, I'm actually going to give props to Jerry Krause, because especially in a time where, you know, in his time, like, GMs were a big thing, but they weren't as big as they are now. I mean, Magic Johnson's been a GM, and we saw, like, the crazy hype about him when he was GM of the Lakers. Jerry West is getting all the praise, you know, him and Doc Rivers, for putting together the Clippers team that's so dope and that's killing it today. So I feel like Jerry Krause, I mean, the fact that he maneuvered the draft, you know, and he negotiated for Michael Jordan and kind of got Charlotte, I think it was, to take Michael Jordan so they could trade for him. I think it just shows to me, like, you know, that guy was kind of a visionary. He was an idiot because obviously he wanted to get the praise. And that's what ultimately broke up the team, because he wanted to show that, you know, he's the one that put the team together. And he actually ended up undoing all his good work because he wanted to get some shine. So I think Jerry Krause for me was like, he was definitely the man. And then you're gonna say some shit, aren't you, Laz?
Yeah, continue.
I know you. You have a certain face that you make when you're about to talk shit, and I think
I told you, I'm a loud thinker.
Expressive.
Even with my face. It's bad.
And then while we're on the topic of like the team breaking up, and we all know why they broke up, but then there's a question that they asked the owner Jerry Racendorf at the end of the episode, right, where they said to him, why didn't you bring everyone back for the next year? And he was like, well, I asked Phil to come back, but it would have been impossible to keep the team together because we wouldn't have been able to pay the team. Sorry. Do you guys think that was bullshit, or do you think?
Did he say we wouldn't be able to pay the team? But the honest thing he was saying is that after Phil left, there was no way he was going to keep the team together.
Yeah, because I think everyone's value had shot up. Like that was his excuse. Yeah.
His excuse was like he had gone to the roof and he was going to have to pay a lot of money to keep the team together, even for one more year. Even for one more year.
I think at some point, like you have to be cognizant that if you keep those players for far too long, they're not going to be worth much in the markets. And someone has to do the ugly job of facing those facts and cashing in on that, and I think breaking that team up has allowed the Bulls, and even though this franchise isn't what it used to be, to survive even without these trophies all those years. That's fitting, because you were either going to crash as a team, which they have, but financially the Bulls, they're still, I don't think they're particularly great, but they're still there as a franchise. They're not, and so that financial thing had to come through. You got to break up. You got to break it up at some point. At some point, the team peaks, the Galacticos break down, so-and-so goes that way, everyone goes that way, everyone goes that way. Ronaldo had to leave Real Madrid at some point. You know what I'm saying? Like that famous, Barcelona team eventually withered away. So I think, and people were being insensitive about that. And I think, people are talking about how they could have won the seventh one. What if they didn't? That for me is a far worse reality than you needed to. Someone had to do that ugly job of going, it's all these guys, it's done. Let's make the ugly decision. Let's cash in. I would.
Yeah.
I would. I'd sell Scottie Pippen. I'd break them motherfuckers up. Cash in. Thank you for the trophies, all 6 of them. Now I'll give you the money.
You know what though? The weird thing is, you almost kind of feel that next season was kind of made for them to win, right? Because the San Antonio team Spurs that won was a good team, but I don't think it was better than the '98 Bulls. And I think over and above that, it was a 50-game season. I can't remember the Spurs who won or who won in '99 actually. But I think the fact that it was a 50-game season, it feels like the cards were stacked in the Bulls' favor, because you had a 50-game season, which meant it was less time. They had more time to recover going into the season, because they've been to the playoffs so many times. They had the experience. I don't know if they still have the hunger and drive, but I think that team would have, and maybe the fact that this was the last dance actually helped them over the line in a few of the games. But I think for me, I think if you say to everyone, okay, guys, here's the goal, right? So we've had an amazing year. We've won the championship. Let's do it one more time. And you negotiate with the players, right? You're like, listen, we know this is what you're worth now, but we'll give you this much to keep you for one more season. And you negotiate with everyone to kind of come to a respectable number where people don't feel like they're being underpaid, but it makes it worthy for them to come back into the team. So you give that thing one more run. Because also, historically, Jerry Racendorf is known for, he underpaid Michael Jordan. He underpaid Scottie Pippen. So he's also known for being very stingy with money, which is why I kind of don't buy into his reason.
No, if he's stingy with money, that's why he sold him. But anyway.
Sugumani, what do you think, Doug?
Oh yeah, I think for me, my example would be Golden State, man. They were stacked, but they made it work. So I think they could have probably done the same thing. Plus, if you're gonna rebuild, what are you gonna rebuild around if you destroy everything? You know what I mean? You need to still have something there. You could have said, okay, cool, let's give it one more season, and then Scotty, we've been screwing you over the whole time. We're gonna give you the equivalent of a super max deal. So we'll give you the best contract which we can offer you. Jordan, we know that you're probably tired, so you can go. Kerr, we're going to offer you this much. Rodman will give you this much, and so on and so forth. And then Phil, if you're going to stay around, this is how we'll do it. But I think probably the reason why it broke up, I mean, I think it was like Jerry Krause made it easy for the owner by being an idiot, because Jerry didn't have to be the bad guy. Like I think that was the theme throughout the whole thing.
Yeah,
so I think, like I mean, they were throwing that guy under the bus every chance they got. So it's just like, but fam, I mean,
and he took it.
Yeah.
That guy wanted to be the bad guy, so he wanted
to he loved it. He loved that role.
Yeah. I mean, we can see the bad guy in Space Jam was actually based off of him. Like if you look at the character, it's exactly the same guy.
Oh, with this.
Okay. I can see that. But yeah, I think that was a cop out by the ownership. Like it's easy to say that in hindsight, but I mean, you had those guys for all those years. Plus, I mean, we forget Jordan was only back second stint for like 4 years, so you could have maybe done like another 2 or 3 years out of him easy. I mean, Jordan even said like that's his biggest regret. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, I think like even in that thing, he says like he's convinced that they would have won that seventh championship if they kept that whole team together.
It would have been dope because then you would have had that new era coming in of Kobe and Shaq, like how like you know, and then there was gonna have that thing where like the team actually takes them out, like the way they took out the Pistons. So I think there's like some of that where people were like, and that's what Jordan has over everyone is that no one took him down. Like he's 6-0, that's it.
Yeah, that's true.
I just feel like when you're like at a concert, you know, like I'm making an analogy, and you go, guys, this is my last song, and then you walk off.
Yeah.
And then you come back and you go,
So it's like, oh shit.
I hate that. Go home. Go home. Don't say, yeah.
People do that so much during concerts that it got to a point where people were actually like, no, guys, I'm really leaving. Like, people had to come back and be like, guys, I'm not coming back. I'm really good.
You can go home.
Stop chanting my name. That ain't happening.
It's just swag to say it's the last dance and you come back again. God, they didn't. I'm happy they didn't. Like,
of course. I mean, like in that context. But if there was never like the last dance, then they should have kept it going. Yeah.
Yeah, that I'm sure.
Yeah.
And also, like, funny enough, like I think the Bulls were like Derrick Rose injury away from winning, you know, a championship again. I think they could have won a championship if Derrick Rose had stayed healthy when they had Taj Gibson, Joakim Noah, and that crazy Bulls team, you know. And then they actually could have won a championship with those guys. And then another thing I wanted to speak about is, you know, we've spoken a lot about Phil Jackson. And Suku, you mentioned earlier in this conversation that, you know, Greg Popovich coached Steve Kerr, so did Phil Jackson. On that note, Sukumani, who do you think is the greatest coach of all time?
Phil Jackson, easy.
Damn, we didn't even think about it. We didn't take time to like consider the options. Like there's Red Auburn, like you're just straight up going for like Phil Jackson. It's not even close.
Phil Jackson, I think, look, it's easy to say he had to deal with stars, but he had to manage egos, bro. Like, that's the crazy thing is that, like, I mean, Popovich, he had stars that weren't stars. Like, I mean, Kawhi Leonard is not going to give you no issues. Tim Duncan's not going to give you any issues. Like, you're not going to have, like, that Pippen moment if you got Duncan. Duncan's going to shut the fuck up and just be Duncan. You know what I mean? Whereas the Bulls, there was a lot to manage. I mean, he's had to manage circuses, like, twice in his career with Kobe and with MJ. And I think just the way in which he deals with people. Like if you read his book, The 11 Rings, you get like interesting insight into the guy and like his career and all that stuff. So yeah, Phil Jackson without a doubt.
But also like, fine, he had to manage egos, but you're dealing with like out of the, I'd say like we're talking about the top 15 greatest basketball players of all time. Like he managed like 4 of those guys. And probably 3 in the top 10.
And they won, bro. Most importantly.
Also, like, you're managing guys who wanted to win. Like, Michael Jordan wanted to win more than anything else. Kobe Bryant wanted to win more than anything else.
Yeah, but I mean, like, look at the OKC team when they had Ibaka, Harden, all those guys. Like, that team was stacked. They still couldn't win, bro, because the coach was shit.
Yeah. Because also, like, that team didn't have the chemistry. Fair enough. But you feel like Popovich and Phil Jackson both could have won with that team. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah, so for me, it's like, I don't know, dude. So I feel like it's. I'll probably also say Phil Jackson, but I don't think it's as cut and dry as everyone makes it seem. You know, that, it's Phil Jackson. He won the 11 ring. But dude, I mean, you had Kobe Bryant, you had Shaquille O'Neal, you had Dennis Rodman, you had Scottie Pippen, you had Pau Gasol, you had Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time. Like it's like managing Diego Maradona and Pele and not winning anything in your career. Like um, versus which is what Klopp is doing because Liverpool doesn't have great players. Okay, I'm joking, but what I'm saying is like versus. Sorry, I take that back. That was an unnecessary shot. So basically, what I'm saying is, it's like Pep Guardiola winning with Barcelona versus Brendan Rodgers winning with Leicester. Like those are two completely different teams, but somehow, like both managers win. Not Brendan Rodgers, sorry, Claudio Ranieri. Both managers somehow managed to win the trophy. I mean, the title. And that's why for me is like, fine, Phil Jackson probably is the greatest, but Greg Popovich is a very close second in my opinion.
Definitely.
Les, I see you nodding your head. Where do you stand? You're like
I think the unanimous decision. you can't deny it. But a close runner up for me, and I think I really feel this, and I don't know his name, but the homie the coach who coached the Pistons, I found
Chuck
that.
Daly.
Yeah, man, there was something interesting about that, because he had the Bulls locked for a little while, and he knew how to play Jordan as well. So they had like that breakout thing, but Jordan just went phenom, and like they never came back from that. You know what I'm saying? But for the period when even Phil Jackson's coaching methods were put into question coming up the Pistons, you had this highly technical coach who had a system that worked. You had a disruptive team that pushed that to another level. So I found that to be quite interesting, and to be able to manage those egos and also get an entire team of people who aren't probably bad boys to behave like bad boys. So I thought like that was. I mean, I saw some of those players. I was like, you were in the Pistons, bro. You're the softest talking person. A lot of those players seem like they're just like, but now they be made to look like these hard niggas that were part
like
of the
Isaiah
Pistons
Thomas,
team. Yeah, talk about like Isaiah Thomas.
That nigga looks soft, bro.
It doesn't even look like you read Bible scriptures before he wake or sleep. Like
he's a Jehovah's Witness, man.
Yeah, dog, is that your door with a ball and a Bible?
You're a lot.
Yeah.
I was reading an article earlier today, right? About like how, and I mean, I think it makes sense, because if you're gonna create content about yourself, you're not gonna make yourself like a loser. I mean, I think Michael Jordan. I always confuse him. Anyway, Michael Jordan. I know. Stop it.
There's too many jokes that I'm not gonna touch them.
Touch alone is fine. Michael Jordan is making a documentary about himself. Fine, he looks like an asshole, but he still comes out looking like the great player that he is. So there's a player who used to play in the Bulls team, Horace Grant. I was reading an article where he was complaining about like how Michael Jordan makes him seem like this amazing. No, stop it. We were talking about like how everything is slanted in Michael Jordan's paints him in a positive light, that teammates didn't always respond the way that they did to the way he treated them. I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but I feel like Horace Grant was on the documentary and they gave him a chance to speak his piece, and at the same time, if I'm making a documentary about myself, I'm not going to make myself look like a banana.
I don't even think that's the point of. I don't even think we need to discuss that kind of stuff,
right? Like
because like homie needs to get his own documentary, dog. Like, you shut the fuck up, get some people to shoot your shit. Like, honestly, get your own shoes. Like, have like a range. Get footballers playing in your boots. Then like we can have that kind of conversation. But like, if people really wanted to make a documentary about you, they would. So like, I think you can't scrutinize. I think. People going, yeah, it's all about Jordan. Of course, if I watch a Michael, and for me, what made this documentary even more amazing is that he gave people alongside him their time to shine. When the Scottie Pippen episodes like came on, Scottie Pippen was trending. You know, there were women likening their lives to Scottie Pippen. She was like, you know, in my life, I'm like a Scottie Pippen. I'm like, how, woman? Like, I've always felt like I'm a Scottie Pippen. You know, like now it's become metaphysical where you just feel undervalued, but you're great.
Yeah.
He gave everyone their time to shine. You know, we started to realize that Jordan wasn't just Jordan. He was Jordan with everyone else that he played for. And, you know, so, hey, man, dog, like, he didn't do this alone, and it doesn't feel that convoluted for me, you know? And, like, I also looked at the stats. People thought, like, this would, like, hype up Jordans. And like Nike didn't really put too much of a big like campaign behind the Last Dance or try to push Jordans down people's throats. And maybe that could be because of his preference or what. But like you can see the hype from the first episode begin to die down in terms of sales of purchases of Jordans as we got to the final episode. So it didn't spike over time. So that might have been a push from them. So people critiquing it as a marketing strategy, we'd know. Like I think they just allowed the documentary to do what it wanted to do. So that homie mustn't even come talk about that. It was getting old. Yeah, it was getting old.
How did you get your titles, fam? Would you have get your title?
Would you have? Like, you can't deny it. You know?
I was like, I was like, really, dude? Like, come on. And then he even spoke about the thing where Steve Kerr got into a fight with Michael Jordan. But I was like, dude, they addressed that in the documentary. So what point?
They spoke about it. Yeah, they spoke about it.
He wasn't even there, dude. He was gone by then. Like, what's he talking about?
He's a pizza man. He's a pizza man.
And then speaking of people like Steve Kerr and, you know, John Paxson, right? I think every time we've spoken to Suku about like what it takes to build a championship, the one thing we've always actually forgotten is the role players. How significant do you think role players are in the general scheme of like chasing a championship or trying to win a title?
Oh, I think they're massive, man. I think they're massive. I mean, you can look at it in multiple sports, like in soccer. You like Real Madrid will always look at like a Claude Makalele. Like you always have those guys that like do stuff quietly, that just kind of keep the team going. And I mean, for the Bulls, I mean, you had guys like your Bill Cartwrights, your Charles Oakleys, your Horace Grant during that first run. Guys that are just willing to kind of just like hold things down. I mean, like Steve Kerr was essentially like the sixth man. Like I'm not sure whether or not he was in the starting lineup, but I mean, like that was someone who had to come in and like make things happen. So I think the role players are always key. I mean, you could see it with the Warriors team when they won. You had guys like Sean Livingston stepping up. And yeah, I mean, you see it in all the sports, as I said. So they were very key, very, very key. And the Bulls had some good ones. I think what was nice to what Lazarus said is that Jordan gives everyone their chance to shine. Like in the dark when he tells Steve, like, it's coming to you because they keep on double teaming me. So like your time will come. So I thought like things like that were just very dope.
Yeah. That's actually quite true. Les, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I've always been a fan of like those kind of players that just do the basics right. You know, that you can just depend on to make sure that the pass is made or, you know, the interceptions there. Those gents just did that work exceptionally well. And, you know, like I fall in love with that because like you can always know you'll get that every single time that person is on the court. So yeah, fully. Because also like players like Jordan are erratic. They'll do one thing, they'll do another thing. So, you know, where that player leaves gaps and holes, you need those players to fill those elements in there, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's important because I mean we did speak about, you know, that controversial thing you said about like he's tearing up about the way that he plays. because that's the thing is like, you know, he pushed his homies, but the one thing that he also did was like he prepared them for the moment. You know what I mean? Like he knew that at some stage I can't always make these shots. You know, like there's going to be times where I'm going to be double teamed, or I'm going to be too tired, or I'm not going to be on top of my game. I'm going to need other players.
Thanks to Phil Jones as well. Phil put that in him. He's like, you don't have to do all this yourself. You have teammates, you know. So you know, and then like there's an element of like him coming towards and learning that, and then trusting his teammates. I think that was dope as well.
100%. Even with the fights and everything, I think it's all about creating that trust and that relationship. I mean, look how close he and Steve Kerr were towards the end. You know, like they were like pretty tight. I mean, they didn't talk about personal stuff. They spoke about basketball. But when they walked onto the basketball court, Michael Jordan knew he could trust Steve Kerr and vice versa.
Someone said something interesting about like learning how to fight with people, like just, you know, having a vibe to know, okay, Jordan knew like I can push this person that much, that far before they snap, you know, so it's just like a way he knew everyone and studied everyone and knew how much he could get out of each and every single player on that team.
Yeah, because fights are important, man. Like niggas got to scrap, bro. Because otherwise, like, how do you know someone? Like, if I don't argue with you and challenge you, then I don't respect you, bro. It's like, well, you know, whatever. Yeah.
Like me, like I've had friendships with homies where like we became tight after we fucked each other up. You know what I mean? Sometimes you gotta know what you said.
You know that person's max, like when they like, like, this is you.
Oh shit, that's crazy. So I don't know if you guys, one of my favorite parts from the last episode, right? I don't know if you guys realized or noticed this. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. But I swear to you, if you play the part where they're celebrating that 6th championship and they're spraying champagne in the locker room, dude, I've never heard so many high-pitched voices in my life. Oh, here's
My favorite was when he belittled Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, yes.
And he was like, nice to meet you. During those celebrations, I was like, yo, bro. Like, Leo was like...
I saw your little movie. Yeah, it was nice. What was it?
You could just see him shrink. You could just see Leo DiCaprio just see nothing. Like, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And at that time, he was hot shit, yeah.
Bro.
Yeah. But also, like, the interesting thing about the documentary as well is you see, like, the transition of Michael Jordan as well. From, like, this kid who's, like, pretty confident in himself to, like, I remember there's a time when they're going to game 1 of the finals and he's listening to music in the back of the bus. And he's like, they're like, Michael, what are you listening to? He's like, oh, I'm listening to Kenny Lattimore.
You are.
Yeah, you are. You know he's my boy, right? You know he's my boy. Not even out yet. I was like, okay.
Young Flex, dog, let him know.
Michael flexing so hard towards the end. He was like, yeah, no, I know. I'm the man. I got this. This.
Twitter people are like, so who's Kenny Lattimore?
Like, does he make trap?
Even the way Michael Jordan was bumping his head to the music, I was like, is it Kenny Lattimore though?
This is a banger.
This is a bangers, dog. And I think one thing I also liked, which is like, and I think it made so much sense to me when they said it. I think it was the guy who wrote Rare Air, the book on Michael Jordan. And he was like, Michael Jordan's superpower isn't the fact that he can jump high or run fast. It's the fact that he's always present. I don't know about you guys, but I struggle to be present. Like, I'm struggling right now to be present, you know, because it's so hard to focus on one thing. You see, like, Lazarus is distracted by his pocket. It's so hard to be present all the time. And it felt like Michael Jordan was always in the zone.
Yeah, that's crazy. That for me was really interesting because it made sense. And I think for me, you know, I was saying like finishing The Last Dance gave me a lot of solace as a person, as an individual, because I realized that, because people think this greatness thing or doing something at a top level it's grandeur. It's all like, it's marshmallows. It's nice. You're making money from it, but there's this dynamic to it, and there's a price that comes to it. And a lot of people can't come to terms why they don't have the things that they have, because they blame their lives. But you've never worked as hard as Michael Jordan to get something. Like, people don't, like, that level of hard work is unbeknownst to the normal common individual. So I was like, there's a reason why I'm not at this, because I've not given myself enough. I'm not that determined. I don't want it as bad as he did. You know what I'm saying? And it's that presence to go, this is what I chose to be. I chose to be the greatest, and this is what comes with that. You know, and that's why you never saw him freak out with fans or push people. In the entire documentary, you know, all he asked was to be let go. He was polite all the time because he's accepted his reality. And that's the presence that homie spoke about, to say that's his gift, in accepting that to be the greatest, this is what comes with it. Because he's literally in that moment, he's living that lifestyle. And that's why he looks so calm at the end of the movie. You know, the whole thing has that last drag. he gets up early, and he walks just in this comfortable home, you know. So I think, yeah, I felt that at the end of that, you know.
I'm gonna start calling him Stogie J from now on because I hope you.
He rolled a long thing at the end.
Oh, crazy.
In other
Crazy.
controversial tweets, someone once said they were talking about like how yellow Jordan's eyes are. They were like, Jordan drenches his eyes in Hennessy every night before he
Oh,
goes.
Like, I swear, that's hard. It's hard to miss that though, because you're like, why are Michael's eyes so yellow though? Like, what's going on?
They say he sees in sepia, bro. I saw that I died, bro.
Everything's old school. Everything's
Yeah.
old school.
He sees in sepia. Also, before we wrap this up, just 2 more points. I'm glad that we've all got white backgrounds because otherwise people would be able to see us. And then
Shout out the lady B.
shout out B.
I ain't touching that one.
What a stand-up! What a like in terms of stand-up comedy, she had a run.
Yo,
But those tweets were fire. I won't even lie. Some of those roasts, I was like, whoa, wow.
Killing me. She was killing me. I was like,
the butterfly one was like, yeah, I was like, yeah, okay, cool. So listen, before we wrap this up, last question for each of you. Greatest sports personality of all time across all sports. So, okay, you're the guest, Laz. So I'll let Suku go first while you think loudly.
Dude, I grew up in the Jordan era, so for me, it's Tim, no doubt. I mean, his like his impact on the game of basketball and just everything in general. Because I mean, like The Last Dance was made by the NBA and ESPN because they know that Jordan is how we're gonna take this game global. So every chance that they can use to market him. I mean, initially he did it back in the '90s, and they're using him to do it now in the 2020s. So when basketball comes back, it'll be interesting to see if people actually follow up and like engage with it. So I think, yeah, for me, I mean, look, obviously there are like much bigger sports in the world than basketball. But I think for him to take a sport that's quite insignificant on a global scale and give it the kind of standing that it has now, just after this documentary, I've got to give it to Jordan.
Oh,
Nice. Okay, LazarusMan, what you got?
Yeah, it's. I'm sorry, for me, it's Michael Schumacher.
Wow. All the Michaels.
Yeah, and also because specifically, like I love, for me, anytime someone has had an impact in life is when they become a term, as a speech of term.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like Be Like Mike was the one thing for Jordan, but like also like if you drove in a Swindon, was it a Schumacher? You know, like there was something I liked about like that whole thing of like just being likened to doing something. I thought, no, this guy, he could drive, no Schumacher. And that for me just made me realize how we transcended the sports. I mean, Formula One was a SABC3 thing back in the day, you know, and no one got that. But we always saw Schumacher in that light and just pushed and just propelled Formula One to where it is in that sense. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, and he was always like a hero of mine. I remember I used to dream of, as a kid, I used to dream of becoming the first black Formula One driver. This was, I was like, oh, there's no black people there. One day I could do it. You know, little did I know that partying expensive. You know, so yeah, Schumacher for me, mainly because that was who I saw at the time.
Yeah.
A lot, and just grew up around, and just, you know, I love that idea, and just he like also like Jordan raced against some of the greats and shined as a kid, you know, Alain Prost, you know what I'm saying. So it's and he was there mingling with those people at the time. So that's for me, on a personal opinion, that homie rocked.
Yeah, no, definitely. Dude, I concur with you on the Schumacher thing. I mean, I think the reason I fell in love with Formula One, just like I fell in love with basketball, was the two Michaels. You know, Michael Jordan, Schumacher. And I think, you know, like people know Ferrari Michael Schumacher, but I know Benetton Michael Schumacher. You know,
He was
when he first came into Formula One, and I always found it fascinating how. I mean, there's even a character on some soapy called Schumacher. I don't know if it's any relation, but anyway, the fact that, you know, every time someone drove fast in the hood, it was like, why we get a Schumacher? Like, even my mom would be like, we quote my mom Schumacher because yeah, dog, because that's the fact that it got to the hood, you know, it was
It was
absolutely,
that thing.
absolutely insane.
We were
Yeah.
talking about it similar to like the passing of Saul Kersner recently, you know, rest in peace to him. But it was like that when someone acted like they had money. It's like, not just Saul Kersner.
True story.
You know, we transcend culture in that way, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also there's something else that you mentioned. I think it's also the reason that, you know, Lewis Hamilton is amazing. Let's be honest, right? But I think also the reason I hate on Lewis Hamilton because he's the first black guy. I wanted to be Lewis Hamilton, dog. Every time I see Lewis, I'm like, this nigga's living my life right now. This could be me, but cutting expenses, you know. But on that note, I'd probably say my favorite sports personality is probably between like Diego Maradona and Muhammad Ali. I just love Diego, dog. Diego is also like in the mode of Dennis Rodman. Like he's just next level in terms of like his insanity. But I think for me, because of what Muhammad Ali represents, you know, like, you know, he was a gifted fighter, but he wasn't the strongest. But he was the smartest, and sometimes he was the fastest. And he always found a way to outthink his opponent, which is quite a cool, you know, analogy for like how to always approach things in life. Because sometimes you don't have to be the strongest, but you can always outthink or outdo the other person. And I just loved how he walked into a ring, like believing he's won the fight before the fight has even started.
Yeah.
So that mentality was like next level. On that note, Lazarus, Doug, I knew this would be a dope episode, and I knew that having you on would be fucking dope. So I really appreciate you for coming through, Doug. We're gonna let you. So we always do is we let our hosts have the last word when we sign off. So I just want to say to everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you. Check us out on YouTube and Instagram if you're not already. This is Khalilizang, aka GT, signing out. Until next week's episode of Beyond the Court. Peace.
Shut up.
Peace, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Beyond the Court. What up? Subscribe. Jameson, we told you to bring the cash, bro. Get a sip on this show.